Hey guys, YouTube Overhead here. Alright, now here I am continuing on with these reviews of live action movies based on cartoons. And now for my next review, this is going to be a review for Scooby-Doo. So, this movie was released in 2002, yeah. And, like a lot of these films, when it came out, it didn't really receive a lot of love. I mean, yeah, a lot of people really just were bashing this film, saying that it's bad, and, yeah, it just really did not really, get a lot down from the cartoon and yeah, all that other stuff. And yeah, that's true. Yeah, this film really is not a very good movie. I mean, like these other movies I've already talked about, this just really just does not really have the elements that really did make the cartoon so enjoyable. Yeah, so this film really just it really does suffer from the same problems as all these other movies do. So I just really don't know what it is about like all these movies that just failed to capture what made the original cartoons so good. And and just like why is it that all of these movies just end up like failing at the same thing? So yeah, I really don't know like what it is about like all of these movies that are just failing to capture or what made the cartoons so enjoyable. But yeah, whatever the case may be, it really just does come down to the same thing. Just yeah, this movie just really is not very good. Yeah, yeah. I remember like I guess like for kids this movie really isn't that bad. I remember like I was a kid when this movie came out and when I first saw it and yeah, and when I was a kid, I mean, I liked it. So yeah, I guess like for kids, I mean, this film like is like enjoyable, but yeah, if you actually do like as you get older, like you really do like realize like how many more problems this movie really does have. And yeah, so it really just comes down to like as a kid you enjoy it, but as you get older, like you really do like learn like how bad it really is. Yeah. Yeah, so that's really like how this film really does like come off as. Yeah. So the Scooby Doo cartoons, like, gosh, I mean, where do we even begin with like the Scooby Doo cartoons? Like, yeah, I mean, the Scooby Doo cartoons like date back to like the 1960s. Yeah, I guess like technically the 1960s. Yeah, the Scooby Doo cartoon started in 1969. Yeah, the original cartoon was Scooby Doo, Where Are You, which like started in 1969 and aired for like 3 seasons. And over the years, there's just been like a bunch of different Scooby Doo cartoons. So yeah, so Scooby Doo really has just become a part of pop culture. Like Scooby Doo has really just it's probably like one of the most famous cartoons of all time. Yeah, I remember like I did watch Scooby Doo as a kid and I liked it. Like I remember I did watch like episodes of Scooby Doo Where Are You and some like other Scooby Doo cartoons growing up. Yeah, and I liked Scooby Doo. I mean Scooby Doo like yeah, I mean it did like have like a lot of like humor for kids and yeah, and I thought that it did work. Yeah, like of course like the premise of Scooby Doo is like of course like Mystery Inc., which consists of like Scooby Doo, Shaggy, Fred, Daphne, and Velma. Like, yeah, they're really just always like on cases like to solve like mysteries. Yeah, and they really just like go to like haunted houses or like just like some places that seem to have like some haunting mysteries going on, which seems to be like have like all this like supernatural stuff going on. And then yeah, then it's really like a really, like just like showing that how like these are just like people like in like costumes and stuff and yeah and throughout like the shows yeah, and it really just like the Scooby Doo, like, and all the characters just like go through like all a bunch of like antics and missteps. Yeah, and that was basically like the premise of the original Scooby Doo Where Are You cartoon. Yeah, as like in like other like variations of Scooby Doo, like they do like try some different stuff, and I guess like some of it does work, but yeah, with other series it really doesn't work. Yeah, so I guess like all the like Scooby Doo iterations have like are like kind of like inconsistent. Like some really do work and some really don't. Yeah. As far as like this film goes, I mean, yeah, a lot of it really does not work out. Like I feel like one of the big problems for this movie is just like it seems just like very unfocused, and yeah, and it really a lot of the scenes just really don't go anywhere, and there's just a lot of stuff in this film that just seems really pointless and comes out of nowhere. Like in this movie, you have stuff like a mystery Inc. breaking up at the beginning of the movie, which is pointless because it really doesn't go anywhere. Yeah, you got like stuff like with like the all five of them like really not getting along except for Scooby and Shaggy. Like they're always like bickering and arguing with each other. There, yeah, and also we got like this little thing going on with like Fred and Daphne. Like all of a sudden, it shows like there's like a romantic connection between the two, which really doesn't go anywhere either. Like it just comes out of nowhere and it really seems like absolutely pointless. Yeah, and there's just a lot of like pointless some bits like that like throughout the movie, like just a bunch of pointless elements that really don't go anywhere, and no, they just really come out of nowhere. Yeah. So yeah. So as far as the cast for this movie, yeah, in the cast for this movie, you have like a guy, you have a Freddie Prinze Jr. as Fred, Matthew Lillard as Shaggy, Sarah Michelle Gellar as Daphne, and Linda Cardellini as Velma. Yeah. As far as how they do, I mean, I guess like their performances are just fine. I mean, yeah, I guess like they do kind of like get some of the mannerisms down as the characters, particularly Matthew Lillard as Shaggy. I think like he does fine, and I guess everybody else does just fine too at getting like some antics down and the mannerisms of the original characters. Yeah, but I feel like one problem for this movie, like with the casting, I really think that the problem with this is that I feel that the cast are too good looking for their roles. Like, just yeah, when you see the when you like see how they look in the cartoons, like, I mean, you really, I mean, is this really what you would imagine they would look like in live action? I mean, just yeah, they just really don't look like they don't look right. Particularly Linda Cardellini as Velma. What do I mean by that? Well, Linda Cardellini really doesn't do a bad job as Velma. I mean, she does get like the mannerisms down, like being the brains of the team, but gosh, I mean, they just really make her too good looking in this movie. Like, there's a lot of people that really do say that, like, Velma in this movie is better looking than Daphne. And that really shouldn't be, because, yeah, Velma was really like the nerdy brains of the group. So, yeah, and when you look at her in the cartoon, I mean, do you really see her looking better than Daphne? Because I really don't. So, yeah, I just feel that, like, Linda Cardellini, while she really doesn't do a terrible job as Velma, she just wasn't the right choice for it. Yeah. Yeah, and plus, yeah, like I said, like in this movie, like we got like all of a sudden like this like romantic connection between Fred and Daphne. Like at one point, like as Fred is like captured by monsters, like he tells Scooby to save Daphne, and then towards the end of the movie, like they end up kissing, and just yeah, I mean, and it really just comes out of nowhere. Like are they all of a sudden like why is there like a romantic connection between the two all of a sudden? Because there really wasn't anything between them in any of the cartoons. So why all of a sudden are they just like having a romantic connection here? I mean, I really feel it really is just comes off like a really forced because yeah, of course like a Freddie Prinze Jr. and Sarah Michelle Gellar are married, and so I really feel they just did that in this movie because they were married. So that's really how it comes off to me. Yeah. And the effects in this movie are like really, really bad. Like, yeah, Scooby just looks off. I mean, he really doesn't even look right in the movie. Like, it really doesn't even look like Scooby-Doo, really. Yeah, and plus, yeah, the effects for like a lot of the other creatures in this movie, like pretty much all the creatures, are really bad as well. Like, yeah, the effects are really just terrible. So yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that really just does not work about this movie. I mean, the humor as well, like the humor, like really doesn't work for the most part. I mean, admittedly, like a little bit of it does work. Like there are like a few jokes in this movie and a few parts that I do actually find kind of funny. Like there are like a few scenes in the movie that actually do kind of get a laugh out of me. But yeah, a lot of the times it really doesn't. And plus, yeah, the humor really just like seems like very off. Like it's a children's film, and at some points, like it seems like they're trying to like squeeze in some adult jokes throughout the movie. So yeah, it really doesn't work. So as you can tell, this movie really is not very good. I mean, yeah, Nostalgia Critic did review this movie back in 2012. It was supposed to be like his final episode of Nostalgia Critic. Yeah, and he really did like bash this movie, saying that it is absolutely horrible and all that stuff. And yeah, And while I feel that he did like kind of like overhit on it, I really don't think the movie really is as bad as he was making it out to be. Yeah, it's still pretty bad. I mean, yeah, a lot of this, yeah, it just seems really unfocused, and yeah, it really he is doesn't really have the charm of the cartoon, and yeah, it just is like a pretty bad movie. Yeah, so yeah, so I wouldn't really go so far to say that this is like the absolute like worst adaptation of Scooby Doo, because I feel that like there are like some cartoons that are like even worse adaptations of Scooby Doo than this movie was, particularly that Mystery Inc. cartoon that was like in the early 2010s. Like, just, yeah, that was a terrible iteration of Scooby Doo. I think that's probably the worst version of Scooby Doo yet. Yeah. So, well, I can't really say this is the absolute like worst adaptation of Scooby Doo. Who, yeah, it is still pretty bad. Like, just, yeah, there's just like really nothing about it that really does actually like feel like how the show really did feel. So yeah, so of course, like this movie was directed by Roger Gosnell, who, yeah, if you know like Roger Gosnell's record, yeah, you do know like how his films really are. I mean, yeah, Roger Gosnell directed movies like he's like directed classics such as Home Alone 3, The Smurfs, Big Mama's House, the Yours, Mine, and Ours remake, Beverly Hills Chihuahua. So yeah, so yeah, you can pretty much like tell like how bad of a director Roger Gosnell is. Yeah, and this movie was also surprisingly written by James Gunn. So yeah, prior to Guardians of the Galaxy, he probably was not really looked upon that great. Yeah. So yeah, so this movie really just yeah, a lot of stuff about it really doesn't work. I mean, yeah, there's it does like a lot of like pointless things, and yeah, some stuff that really comes out of nowhere. It's really just unfocused, and the effects are terrible, and the humor oftentimes really doesn't work. So yeah, so it really just, yeah, there's really not really a whole lot to really offer about this film. So yeah, like the other movies I've talked about, it is pretty bad. So yeah, so I guess I would give this film probably around 1.75 stars out of 4. All right, so yeah, okay, so yeah, so I guess I'll just start talking about the premise of the movie. Yeah, so the movie opens up with the classic Scooby Doo theme song, though it's like a pop version of the song. It's not like the original version of the song. Yeah, and it shows how Mystery Inc. is like a on the case like solving a mystery of the Luna ghost. Well, so yeah, so it starts off kind of like trying to give the feel of the origin of the cartoons. Yeah, it shows like how Fred is like really like a glory hog, always kind of like taking credit for her like all the plans that Velma comes up with, and Velma, of course, is the brains, and Daphne really is kind of like a damsel in distress. Yeah, and Scooby Doo and Shaggy really are just like the two like goofs that are like just like really messing stuff up and getting into trouble. So yeah, yeah. But they do eventually capture this Luna ghost, which like turns out just to be like a janitor that was kind of upset that he got turned down by Pam Anderson. So yeah, Pam Anderson makes a cameo in this movie. Yeah, yeah. And admittedly, the Mystery Machine Band in the movie actually does look pretty good. Yeah, they did a good job really making it look very true to how it did look in the cartoons. Yeah, but yeah, then it just like had like a lot of friction between Fred, Velma, and Daphne, because yeah, they were just like really just like a just like there was like a lot of animosity between the three of them. So yeah, so then Fred, Velma, and Daphne, despite like Shaggy's attempts to try to like get everybody to calm down and make up, the three of them ended up just quitting Mystery Inc. So leaving Shaggy and Scooby alone. Yeah, and like I said, it seems like pretty pointless for them to even break up, because most of this film, like, they still are together. So I really don't see like why they even bothered to break them up here in the beginning. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. Then 2 years later, it shows that like each and every one of them have been invited to a horror themed tropical resort amusement park called Spooky Island by the owner Emil Montevarius. Yeah, and Shaggy and Scooby were really like not on board with joining at first, even though like the the person that was trying to recruit them was like telling them all the benefits, which they were still like not really interested until he brought up that the benefits include all you can eat, and of course like Shaggy and Scooby loving food, that's what got them to agree. Then all five of them then met at the airport, reuniting. Writing yeah. And then after they arrived at Spooky Island, they ended up being greeted by Emil Montevarius, and Montevarius then was just explaining to the gang that like apparently his tourists are acting like very strange, and he feels that maybe like they're being brainwashed. And and that night like they were then like the gang then just were all like running into people on the island that seemed to act like very suspicious. Like as Velma was attending a ritualistic performance, she then saw the host named Nagu Twana as well as his henchman and a big luchador named Zarkos. Yeah, and Nagu claimed that ancient demons once ruled the island, and they're plotting revenge since they were displaced by the resort. Yeah. And I guess I should also mention that as a as they were on the plane, Shaggy ended up meeting this girl, Mary Jane, who was played by Isla Fisher. And I guess I should also mention that Emil Montivarius is played by Rowan Atkinson. Yeah, yeah. But anyway, getting back to Shaggy. Shaggy ended up meeting this girl, Mary Jane, and and like and then like as soon as like Shaggy met her, like he of course he became attracted to her, and it showed that uh Mary Jane also like shared Shaggy's fascination with Scooby snacks, which were dog treats. Yeah. So due to Shaggy's attraction to Mary Jane, Shaggy became very distant from Scooby during the trip. Yeah. Then eventually, then and the gang then ended up well, I guess I should have mentioned before I talk about this how Scooby ended up getting a call telling him to come into the forest for some hamburgers, and then as Scooby then being so dim-witted then went into the forest to try to look for the burgers, he eventually then saw this really this this monstrous demon and on the island that ended up scaring Scooby. Yeah. Yeah, and then Scooby tried to tell Shaggy about it, but Shaggy didn't see anything, so Shaggy didn't really believe what Scooby was saying to him. Then okay, then getting back to this, then eventually then all five of them then ended up getting coming up to an attraction up at the island, which was like a haunted house ride inside of a castle. And then as they were all split up to look for clues behind this mystery, then it showed how Fred and Velma then discovered that there was a program that was like seeming to educate creatures about human culture. Sure, and then Daphne, I mean not Daphne, Velma then felt that this island was a brainwashing facility. Yeah, and then Daphne also then ended up discovering a pyramid-shaped artifact that was known as the Daemon Ritus. Yeah. Then when all five of them then met back up, then they went back down to the hotel, and then they were explaining to Montevarius that so the stuff that they found, and that they have some suspects as to who could be behind this mystery, which included Nagu as well as the a voodoo maestro that Daphne ended up meeting, who like pretty much tricked her into going to the castle. She felt, and Montefarius himself. Yeah. Then later that night, then more of the demons then broke into the hotel, and then they just ended up capturing Fred, Velma, and pretty much all the tourists, and it showed that they just got them to pass out with some breath. Yeah, but then Shaggy. Scooby, Daphne, and Mary Jane were all able to escape. Yeah, yeah. Then the following day, then and as a uh, they all then were trying to like look for more clues behind this. It seemed that like everything was just back to normal and how everyone just seemed to be just fine. And then eventually, Scooby and Shaggy then ended up like coming across Fred, and then as Fred was talking to them, then eventually then it was discovered that all of the tourists have been possessed by the demon. And then Shaggy and Scooby then ended up running, and they eventually picked up Mary Jane. Yeah, and then Daphne also ended up like eventually getting captured by Zarko. And he ended up stealing the demon Ritus, and that ended up possessing Daphne. Yeah, then Scooby also then like discovered that Mary Jane was also possessed now too. Yeah, yeah. Then as as Scooby then was trying to tell Shaggy that Mary Jane is possessed, like Shaggy didn't believe him. Then it turned into like an argument between Scooby and Shaggy, and Scooby ended up then eventually just falling down a hatch leading to an underground chamber. And then Shaggy then jumped in after Scooby, and then Shaggy then eventually came across a vat of protoplasm which contained the souls of all the tourists which were possessed, which included Velma, Fred, and Daphne. So then Shaggy ended up like releasing them so they could get back to their bodies. Yeah, it showed like when Velma returned to her body, then it showed how the demon was then just like just thrown out of her body, and then it was also revealed that like the demons can't actually survive in the sunlight, and then it just showed how they just exploded from sunlight. Yeah, yeah, and it was kind of funny because like uh, Fred and Daphne. Like they ended up like they weren't able to get to their own bodies, so they ended up like going to the other one's bodies, which was admittedly kind of funny. Yeah, it showed how like Fred like got into Daphne's body and Daphne got into Fred's body. But this is where like what I was talking about, like with the adult humor that just really doesn't work in this film because like when Fred then like discovered he was in Daphne's body, he just said he could look at himself naked. Like this is a children's movie. Like what kind of joke is that for uh, a children's movie? Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Then Shaggy eventually then got the Damon Ritus back, and then once they all then met up, then it showed that like how their souls ended up just like a randomly switching bodies until like they got like realigned with their correct bodies. Then eventually later on, then Voodoo Mastro then just explained that how if a pure soul is sacrificed to these demons, they will rule the world for 10,000 years. Yeah. Then the gang then eventually then realized that Scooby is that pure soul that Montevarius wants to sacrifice. Yeah, and it showed then how Scooby then eventually then uh, was brought to Montevarius, and Montevarius then was just like telling Scooby how they care about him more than Shaggy does, and yeah, then he just said that he wanted Scooby to be a sacrifice, and Scooby being so dim-witted, he of course like didn't even know what a sacrifice was. He didn't know that was a bad thing, so Scooby agreed to it. Yeah. Then they discovered that this was the reason that Montevarius ended up bringing all of them to Spooky Island to begin with. Yeah. So then, yeah, with Shaggy being determined to save Scooby, then Fred, Daphne, and Velma then all then made amends, and then they all then agreed to work together to save Scooby and stop Montevarius and the demons. Yeah. So then, then they set up this plan where they would be releasing the all the souls and get the demons to explode. Yeah, it showed how they like got a hold of this disco ball that they planned to actually swing into the sunlight to get all the demons to explode. Yeah, but then eventually, then as this the ritual for the sacrifice began, then and Fred and Velma ended up getting caught, but Daphne was able to escape. Yeah, and then it showed how Shaggy was also posing as one of the uh, souls that was like escorting Scooby the to his sacrifice. Yeah. Then Shaggy then just like told Scooby that the situation he's in isn't actually a good thing, and then then Shaggy just apologized for not listening to Scooby and for not really being a good pal while they were there, and just told Scooby that like they are best buddies, and then Scooby then agreed to run off with Shaggy, but then but before they could actually run off, then Scooby's soul then ended up being extracted by Monovarius. Curious, yeah. But then, then Shaggy then stopped them from taking Scooby's soul and released it, and then Scooby's soul then went all over the place. It ended up knocking a Monovarius down, and then eventually Scooby then returned to his body. Then as Fred and Velma were trying to get the Damon Ritus back then they then discovered that Monovarius was actually a robot, and he was actually like being controlled by Scrappy Doo. Yeah. And earlier in this movie, there was like a scene with Velma telling like a story about like old days and how Scrappy was actually with them solving mysteries. And yeah, like Nostalgia Critic, I have the same hatred for Scrappy Doo. He is so annoying. Yeah, and and it was like showing how like Scrappy was just like a power hungry egomaniac, and then eventually Mystery Inc. just abandoned him, tired of his attitude. So then so he then this was then like a plan by Scrappy, happy to get revenge, and then and it showed how despite the fact that like the ritual was interrupted, Scrappy did actually like Scrappy then did like have enough energy to uh, like he transform into a monster. And then and he said that all he needs to complete the transformation is Scooby. So then Scrappy was then like chasing after Scooby and Shaggy while Fred and Velma were like fighting off everyone else. And then eventually Daphne then like got out of the chamber, but she was attacked by Zarkos, and then a fight broke out between Zarkos and Daphne. Yeah. But then eventually, then as a Scrappy then eventually did get a hold of Scooby. Then Daphne ended up defeating Zarkos, and she knocked him into the ritual chamber. And then Zarkos ended up like knocking over the vat, which released all the souls. Then they returned to their bodies, and then with the demons then thrown out of the bodies, then Daphne then like used the disco ball to reflect sunlight to destroy all the demons. Then Shaggy ripped the demon Ritus off of Scrappy's body, and then all the rest of the souls were freed, and Scrappy just turned back to normal and was easily defeated. Then with everybody now returned back to normal, everybody back in their bodies, then Scrappy then saw that well, not Scrappy, I should say, but Shaggy then found the real Monovarius that was imprisoned by Scrappy. Happy, yeah. And then it showed like the the gang all reuniting. There was a moment with Fred and Daphne kissing, and then Shaggy and Scooby now uh, reunited too, and it also showed like how that Mary Jane also reunited with Shaggy also and thanked him and Scooby. Then it showed then in the aftermath how Scrappy, Nagoo, Zarkos, and all the other minions were arrested by the police, and then Fred also now actually gave credit to Velma for the plans. And then then it showed how all five of them then said how now Mystery Inc. was back together, and then they would continue solving mysteries together. And then and that's how the movie ended. And as the credits then started to roll, then we got this little scene now with Shaggy and Scooby now getting the all-you-can-eat deal from Spooky Island. And it showed them eating, and then it turned into like a bit with them consuming some hot peppers, and just like with it being real hot and smoke coming out of them and everything, and then it ended with like the two of them then like just guzzling down a full jar of hot peppers each, and then it just cut to the outside of the resort where you saw like a smoke coming out from the windows, and then and that's how it ended. Yeah. So like I said, while I don't really think that this really is like as horrible as like Nostalgia Critic put it, it is still a pretty bad movie. Like it just seems so unorganized. There's a lot of stuff about it that doesn't work. The humor is weird, really doesn't work a lot of the times. The effects are really bad. Yeah, the effects on the demons are just like so freaking bad, as well as Scooby and Scrappy. Like the effects are just so bad, and yeah, and just yeah, and it really just does not have the charm of the cartoons at all. So yeah, there just really is just like a lot of stuff that really doesn't work. Like I said, the casting just seems off. The breakup between them at the beginning is very pointless, and yeah, there's just like a lot of stuff that really just comes out of nowhere, and it really doesn't go anywhere in this movie. So yeah, so this film really is just like it just seems like very like unorganized, like it really doesn't know what it's trying to be, and yeah, and it just really doesn't work. So yeah, so it really just is a pretty bad movie. So like I said, I give it 1.75 stars out of 4. Like I said, like it probably is like fine for kids to watch. Like kids will probably like it because I did as a kid. But yeah, for anyone else, like anyone older, it's really not going to be your film, and yeah, you'll probably end up not liking it. All right, so yeah, so I guess that's all I really have to say about it. All right, so yeah, so this is my review of Scooby Doo. So I hope you guys did enjoy this review, and yeah, man, this movie also, of course, like it did end up spawning a sequel, like a full on sequel. So yeah, so I'll be talking about the Scooby Doo sequel up next. So stay tuned for that. All right, but yeah, but I hope you guys did enjoy this review. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.